You know, sometimes it can be a bit of a mistake to have played a game, liked it, and then gone and tried some of the earlier work from the same studio or developers. Because then you realize, oh, this is just a kind of a rougher version of what you did much better later that I already played. On that note, let's talk about Unepic. So, Unepic is from the same team that made Unmetal, which was a game I really, really liked. If you didn't see my review for that, Unmetal is a parody of Metal Gear games. Not Metal Gear Solid, Metal Gear, like the old 8-bit Nintendo era of Metal Gear. And it parodies it really, really well between the convoluted way in which the story is told, the convoluted events of the story. It understood its target, but it also had a lot of affection for those games, clearly. So it was a solidly designed sort of not replica, but evocative of the mechanics of those games, while at the same time just making jokes about it all the way through. And I really liked Unmetal. Unepic was the game that the same studio made before that, and I appreciate what it is. And it kind of, it did make me nostalgic in a very specific way. So Unepic starts with basically a bunch of people, a bunch of guys hanging around playing a tabletop RPG. One of them gets up to go use the bathroom. It's dark, he can't find the light, and suddenly he finds himself in a castle dungeon kind of place and suddenly dealing with, actual fantastical stuff. It's a pretty rote thing, but the idea is modern snarky guy in a fantastical setting so that he can snark about it as he works his way through it. The gameplay of it was interesting, and that's kind of what made me nostalgic, because it was reminiscent of like early 90s PC RPGs. Not any specific one, at least not any specific one that I was familiar with. But what I mean by that is it was very esoteric. It wasn't unintuitive, but a lot of the choices and the ways in which it played and the ways in which you made use of abilities or navigated the world or whatever else just felt slightly odd in that way that so many games from the early 90s did, especially on PC, where basically the standard practices weren't locked in yet. And so you got a lot more games that would make just odd decisions in terms of the ways that it would have you interact with it or make use of abilities or the mechanics or, the keyboard strokes that you'd go with or whatever. And not necessarily bad, but just unusual. Not what you're used to. Oh, I haven't seen that before. And you do have to kind of accept it on its own terms. And while it is odd in its mechanical design, it's not so odd that I found it like, oh, I can't deal with this. But again, it made me nostalgic for like, oh, I remember when it took longer to figure out games and not everything was just pick up and play because so much stuff is standardized. You can just assume that this button will do this button will do this, and these buttons do that. And it's true for 99% of games. It just reminded me of an era where that was not the case. And I kind of liked that. I didn't like it enough, though. Or I guess more accurately, the mechanics, while it gave me a nice sense of nostalgia, were not super engaging on their own. They functioned, they worked. But what was going to pull me through getting further into the game would have been what pulled me through Unmetal. Not that I didn't like Unmetal mechanically, but like mechanically, it wasn't that exceptional. It was solid, and then it was the humor and the writing and the story that really pulled me through and made me have a great time. And the story and the character and the writing on this are just not good. I can see how a team starting from this kind of humor got better and got to something like Unmetal. But this is bargain basement levels of the most standard, obvious, snarky jokes that you get from this lead character, who I don't find likable at all. Like, the lead character in Unmetal was kind of endearing for how oblivious he was. This guy is just a snarky dick, and I didn't find him interesting. And I don't know percentage-wise how far into the game I got, but it felt like I was approaching like 10, 15, maybe even 20% of the way into the game, and he was still insisting like, oh, they just slipped me shrooms. None of this is real. I'm like, oh, for sake, stop. We know that's not the case. Will you stop? And even if it is the case, if like it's the ending twist that, oh yeah, no, he actually was just on shrooms. Shrooms. Him continuing to insist that it's just like, you did this beat already. Stop it. The humor just was not very sharp. It was very obvious jokes. It was very ham-fistedly delivered jokes. Not nearly as much humor was baked into the mechanics. And I kind of hated the protagonist. Like that was something that reminded me of the 90s in the bad way. You know, that kind of 90s prototypical too cool for everything kind of character. It's kind of what, God, this was 80s, but it's kind of what they made Link into when they did the animated series of Legend of Zelda. Well, excuse me, princess. Like, shut up, you ass. He reminded me of that nonsense, and I didn't like him. And you're stuck with him. Like, there was the potential interesting for the dynamic of like this evil thing that's in his head. So like this thing tries to possess him, but it can't. But it also can't just leave his body. So now it's stuck inside of him. And like there's a lot of potential for an interesting dynamic there because it's an evil entity that wants you to die so that it can leave your body. And there's a lot of potential there, but it's just bottom level bargain basement like, oh, you will be totally safe being here. And then your character goes, but I know you want me dead. Therefore, I know that's lying. Oh, drat, you figured me out. I'm like, really? Really? We're really not going to evolve the dynamic beyond that. And maybe the dynamic does evolve past where I played, but it's one of those cases of if it does it too late because I lost interest in the game before it got better. And it might not get better at all. I don't know. But especially when it comes to a video game, and I would say actually also TV shows, anything that's a longer form of media that demands more of my time than just sitting down to watch, say, a movie, I am willing to say at a certain point, okay, even if this does get better later, you have taken too long to get better, and I need to find something else to do with my time. And that's ultimately where I ended up with Unepic, which is a shame. Because, again, mechanically, I got along well enough that if the writing was on par with Unmetal, I probably would have had a lot of fun with this. But it's just not. I'm being kind of mean about the writing and about the humor. But, like, let's be honest. Most people who have taken a crack at comedic writing have gone for low-hanging fruit, bottom-of-the-barrel stuff early in their attempts to do that. This was the early attempts. It wasn't great. They clearly got sharper. They clearly got better at it when they did more stuff and eventually moved on to Unmetal. Like, clearly practice made a difference and they have gotten better. But this is very... You can feel kind of the rough draftness. Again, not necessarily with the game and the mechanics, but like with the style of the writing and the comedy and the approach to jokes. It just... yeah. And like just how many times the lead character was like, oh, I know how this works. This is like in games, how it's this. And I'm like, okay. Those jokes landed okay in Unmetal because 95% of the time the characters took everything at face value. So the occasional breaks where somebody went, wait, what? That doesn't make sense. Why is it like that? And the answer, the meta answer is because it's a game and that's how games work. That kind of joke worked there because they did it with restraint. Here, it's just kind of one of the standard notes the humor hits, and it's like, I get it. Shut up, you're annoying, and I get it. So it was a shame. I'm glad I tried it, and I want to see if this studio has done anything else. Because again, I really liked Unmetal a lot, but this has that undercooked feeling that an earlier work from somebody who got good later in their career. Yeah, it very much has that feeling. Unepic. Anybody ever played this? What'd you think about it? Whatever your thoughts are, drop something down in the comments. Let's talk about it. Patreon pays the bills. and enables me to do this as my living. Even if you can't help me out that way, like, share, subscribe. Those all help. Don't worry too much about it, though. We take a relaxed attitude around here, so you can just come on back next time you need a break. Now to thank my highest supporting patrons: Robin Moore, Jared Boyce, Subin Lutfulla, Andikate 808, Mara G, Angry Casperl, Dave Hall, Movie Turtle, Oliver B, The Baba Duchess, Sean Miller, Welsh Wrestling Geeks, Melissa Pedersen, Mary Mello, Becky Sparks, Loki Eris, Tracy Scrabbit, Pau Barabajago, and Sir Didymus is my favorite. I also want to give my thanks to all the supporters who didn't get named, because you are all indeed very nifty people. You could be a nifty person too if you go support me on Patreon. And there's the clause. Ugh.